guess, was your favorite cinematography moment and acting moment in this film?
My favorite acting moment in this film was when the character Anthony,
whose story will be continued in another film. Wouldn't that be great to go off like, now we're going into Anthony's world?
It's an action adventure where he goes into outer space or something like that. That's my favorite scene.
Your favorite shot was probably one of those amazing shots of you driving on the NPC.
No, I didn't get to drive the Aston Martin. You hogged the whole thing.
I'm gonna move on to the serious answer.
No, sincerely, my favorite shot in the movie is when the grandfather's wearing the welding glasses. He's hugging his granddaughter, and she says to him, you know, this is so the light doesn't blind you, and it'll be easy to find Grandma when you get there. That's my favorite scene. Favorite shot too.
When it cranes up there. My favorite acting moment is the scene between Kate and Mandy in the hospital room. I think because for me, a lot of the movie is setting up like this chess match, and a lot of it is laying foundation, and that scene is about watching the chess match. And when you watch the scene, who's winning, the miniature game of chess changes a couple times. And they're both just so wonderful in it. And, you know, I just think Kate, you know, Kate's known obviously more famous for big romantic comedies because she's beautiful and funny. But when I saw her in Almost Famous, I was like, this friggin' girl is a movie star, like, with talent. And I know her as a friend, and I've always wanted to say, like, I want to get those moments, like, Almost Famous back on. And so when I saw her do that scene with Mandy, who's, you know, just made me thinking, I was just so moved and so blown away. And, you know, when you cut something together, you often take from lots of different takes, you know, multiple takes, and sewing it all together in the edit room. And all of Kate's takes in that scene were so powerful, but that one, almost all of that close-up that's used was all from one take, because it was just one where it was like perfect. It was like a pitch-perfect vocal. And so I used almost that entire take the whole time. So that's my favorite acting moment in the movie. Of course, there's so many. Joey King, when she's talking to her uncle, and those tears are just flowing over her eyes, I was standing there like this. It's real. That's not a little girl with fake fucking tears in her eyes. That is a little girl tapping into her 13-year-old emotion and watching tears well in her eyes. It's one of the most moving things I ever saw. And then my favorite shot, I don't know, I love photography. Donald, say anything Donald. Actually, I will say Donald, because it was fun. I love camera toys, as those of you guys who watch the videos, and what we did on the highway there, we're shooting the Aston Martin, is this crane that's mounted on an SUV with a remote head on it. So we're flying down, the cops blocked off a small portion of that PCH, which is the main highway 1 essentially in Malibu. And we're flying down the Aston Martin while this SUV with a moving crane arm. So as a movie geek, and you guys paid for that fucking movie arm, so thank you. As a movie geek, blocking off PCH, driving an Aston Martin, being chased by a crane on an SUV, I felt pretty damn good.
Zach, I heard this is your first trip to Austin, so.
Yes, my assistant told me I had to clarify. I once spoke at UT, but I forgot about it. Oh, sorry, this. But I've never been really off that campus, but yes, other than that.
Okay, you kind of touched on this earlier, but I kind of rewatched Garden State last night. As far as common themes, failed actor, death of a parent. The one thing that I see really different.
Someone who can't swim.
Even the costume characters, I remember the whole knife thing. The one thing that I see different about this film versus that film is the spirituality, and kind of coming to terms with your place in the world as an adult versus a youth. So what has happened with you personally in that 10 years that has brought you to that? And a second part of that is, have you asked someone to be part of the soundtrack or an acting bit or something that they said no?
Oh, that's a good question. I had a band, believe it or not, I had a band whose manager priced them out of the soundtrack. Can you believe that? They're not a band, I don't want to say them because I don't want to out anyone. but they're not a super famous band. Some of you music geeks would know them, but to my shock, and the band probably, the shame of it is probably never knew, a manager really overplayed his hand of cards, and so they didn't make it onto the soundtrack. But Paul Simon said yes, Coldplay said yes, like the biggest acts in the world are saying yes, and this guy with his indie band said no. I had that on Garden State too. Fiona Apple's manager said no. I was saying, guys, I think it could be huge. There'll be back-end money. I just don't have any upfront money. I'm literally broke. But I think there might be some back-end money. And he was like, how dare you ask Miss Apple? And it went platinum and won the Grammy for Soundtrack of the Year.
Did you call that guy?
No, I try to avoid mean people. The first question is spirituality, and I think I sort of, in the 10 years since, have tried to be more honest with myself about what I believe. And now more than ever, I mean, I'm you go down this road, but this religion, separation of church and state, getting very blurry. I know what state we're in, so I don't want to get shot, but I think those of us who are out as not being certain about our organized religion need to be more vocal about our questions without being shot down. And I'm very careful in the film not to diss anyone with organized religion. In fact, and I say and believe they're lucky. But I did feel that around me there were so many people, in my case it was Judaism, but I have so many Christian friends who are in the same place, who were saying, yeah, this is what my parents handed me, and I love the traditions, and I love the holidays, and we have great memories, but I don't, it as a set of philosophies isn't working for me as a way of coping with being on this tiny spinning rock in the middle of infinity. So time, because really, it gets really tricky, but with the money, even if at a certain point you can't, it gets so, how do I put this simple way? Really, obviously, time is money, but nowhere is time more blatantly money than on a film set, because you get 12 hours, we shot the film in 26 days. I had Manny Patinkin for 4. Yeah. So I had kids, I had everything you're not supposed to have. Kids, animals, special effects. If this didn't come up in your film class yet, it will. Don't use kids, animals, or special effects. And so it was very hard. That was the biggest thing, was the race against time, because we had no more money, we didn't have $1 more to spend. Even if I wanted to keep putting more of my own money in, and I couldn't because of this film was completely made within the union rules, and so we had reached a threshold of all the union rules, which meant even if I wanted to keep putting my own money in at a certain point, that's it. Otherwise, we graduate to the next level of filmmaking, and we couldn't afford that movie. So we were maxed out, and there was very little overtime. It was like 12 hours, 26 days, that's it. So that was incredibly hard. Very hard. The hardest thing I've ever done. To bang out the film that I can tell you like, thank God, in 26 days. Whoever gets to the mic, Donald is your personal hype man.
Let's give it up for Arizona!
Alright, go ahead, sorry. You want to maximize your questions here, Donald?
I actually wrote the essay I had to write about what my favorite film was, and I wrote about Garden State, so I want to say thank you for inspiring me to write that. And as a writer, I know you wrote this film with your brother, I wanted to know what your writing process was like for this film.
It was totally different from Garden State in that with Garden State, I wrote it on my own and kind of just free wrote a big giant mess of a screenplay, and then in the end, when it was all over the place, began to shape it down. With my brother, since we were co-writing and we were going to be in different states, we got together for about a month and formed the outline of the skeleton, what the movie would be. That way we could attack different parts of the script separately. So what happened is we made this big spine, if you will, and then he'd say, okay, I'm going to dive in and do a first pass of the scene with Kate confronting the boss. And I'd be, okay, I'm gonna go take the first pass of him dropping them off at school the first time. And then we'd sort of swap and give each other notes all over the web. And then we'd meet, every couple of weeks we'd meet in person, and little by little, this thing was created, and then the process was about refining it and cutting it and figuring out what the movie was. And there's a lot more. I shot a lot more. The DVD has about 45 minutes, at least, maybe an hour's worth of cut out stuff for your enjoyment.
I'm really excited for that.
Thank you.
So also about the improv, I know you said the scene in the car dealership, you guys did a lot of improv. Do you kind of like leave room for that kind of stuff in the script?
When there's time, it's all a luxury of time. So for example, I knew it was going to be Donald and I knew we'd want to play around a little bit, so we scheduled it in such a way, can you imagine? We scheduled it in such a way that okay, we have the whole morning in the Aston Martin dealership. But that's still incredibly hard. First of all, not only do you have kids, and not only do we know Donald and I are going to improv, but you have an entire crew in the Beverly Hills Aston Martin dealership, where every car is $300,000, and so it was like Tetris. It literally was like, okay, move that light, okay, someone in that car. It was like terrifying. But so the answer to your question is improv when we have time. I don't have on Scrubs we had the luxury of time because Bill Lawrence would always say, okay, do it written. And then you guys can play. And a lot of your favorite stuff came from us just fucking around and being goofballs. Like smelling each other and saying, you smell like an athlete. And Eagle and all that stuff. But
Eagle came from you.
Eagle came from me. Brendan Fraser picked me up, and I thought it would be funny if JD first hated it, and then he felt like he was a soaring eagle. And never in 1,000 years, I was in Tel Aviv, in I was outside, I was in Israel somewhere, I was on a trip in some farm community, and this girl, really pretty Israeli girl, if it was the movie, the camera would have dollied in on her and it would have blown her hair, and she looked over at me, and she went, eagle? I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that would have happened on a farm in Israel.
Yeah. Thank you guys both very much for all the laughs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But we love you, Austin, and I love my Kickstarter backers, and this film wouldn't have been made without you, and I thought we'd cap it off with a special surprise for you. It's been a while, and we're a little rusty. Very nervous. Alright, you rolling? Here we go. Hit it.
Let's face the facts about me and you, a love unspecified. Though I'm proud to call you Chocolate Bear, the crowd will always stop and stare.
I feel exactly those feelings too, and that's why I keep them inside. 'Cause this bear can't bear the world's disdain, and sometimes it's easier to hide
Then explain our guy love, that's all it is. Guy love, he's mine, I'm his. There's nothing gay about it in our eyes.
You asked me about this thing we share,
And he tenderly replies, it's guy love between two guys.
we're closer than the average man, and why?
That's why I'm matching bracelets at Burgundy.
No, I'll stick by you for the rest of my life.
You're the only man who's ever been inside of me.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I just took your appendix out, dog.
There's no need to clarify.
Oh, no.
Just let it grow more and more each day. It's like I've married my best friend,
But in a totally manly way.
let's go! It's guy love, don't compromise the feeling of some other guy holding up your heart into the sky. I'll be there to care through all the lows.
I'll be there to share the highs.
It's guy love between two guys. it's not what it implies. It's kind of between two guys. No hands.
Only hugs.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. Have a good night.